Hey everyone, Jade Buford here with a track breakdown of Hallett Motorsports Park. Well, we'll get started here. We're riding along in a Miata. We're going to talk about just go through corner by corner, some basic things, key things to focus on, rough braking points, acceleration points, and kind of things to focus on where you're going to get the most lap time from in each corner. Well, let's just go ahead and get started. Coming out of the last corner onto the front straight here at Hallett. So heading down to the first braking zone. For most cars, it's going to be anywhere between the 2 and 3 board just before you go up all the way to the top of the hill or get to the crest right here. It's going to be a good firm brake, and it's important. The road drops away here a little bit on entry. It's important to at least trail that brake in to your initial turn in to kind of help get that nose pointed in the right direction. Most cars are going to be fine touching that curb with their left front tire down there at the apex. If you touch that left curb, it can also help you turn the car a little bit through the center and helps you get out. As we're coming down a long straightaway and leading onto another long straightaway, you don't really want to sacrifice either end. It's kind of going to be a compromise between both. So I would say you could potentially, in this video, you might see that they slightly late apex this corner. It's not super important. You just want to maximize both straightaways the best you can and kind of go with where your car wants to go. So don't try to think about sacrificing too much in this braking zone to get a better exit, because then you're just sacrificing the straightaway to try to make it up on the next straightaway. It's going to be a little bit of a compromise between each one. Let's go a little deeper here. So trailing that brake in, it's perfectly fine to do a little bit of maintenance throttle here, kind of settle the rear end, and there's kind of a dip here at the apex, and then just let it track all the way out. You can see he gets right down to this curb, and that's all perfect. Just really want to focus on the exit, but at the same time, don't feel like you have to sacrifice your entry there too much and get a nice smooth track out to the right. Leave your car set up here out to the right. Heading down to turn 2. This is probably the easiest braking zone to outbrake yourself because you're coming from a pretty high rate of speed and you're basically going to park it for turn 2. So it's easy to go too deep here on the brakes and then just end up overshooting it. There's not a huge penalty for doing so as long as you don't go off the track. But feel free here. For most cars, it's going to be probably about the 2.5, 2 3 board. And you're going to park it. It's easy to get stuck in the ABS here for some cars, but try to just stick with the game plan. If you feel like you can't slow the car down enough, back it up a little bit, because getting down to that apex and holding a tight line around turn 2 is kind of the key thing here. Coming in, trail that brake in. For most cars, if you can just kind of ride the curb all the way around, that's going to be what works best. In higher horsepower cars, definitely keep it as tight as you can around this curb. That way you can get a straighter exit out of turn 2. More momentum type cars like this one, it's not going to be the end of the world if you roll a little bit too much speed in there and it runs a little wide, because then you're just kind of rolling that speed. Just don't fight the car and roll that speed on the way out. Higher horsepower cars, definitely keep it tight. You can see even here, we keep it really tight, and that just allows us to get a straighter exit. The more horsepower you have, the straighter the exit this needs to be. That way you can just start laying power down and really building that momentum through the chicane here, or the S's. Keep it tight, open it up, and that's what it should look like here. That gives you a good exit in a momentum car. It's fine if it washes out a little bit. You can trim a bit of this curb up ahead if needed be, but if not, I wouldn't recommend using it if you don't have to. But you can run over it, and especially in a momentum car, probably won't upset the car too much. In a higher horsepower car, you might get some wheel spin on it and just hurt your exit a little bit. But in a higher horsepower car, if you're out there in first place, you've already hurt your exit. Let's go a little farther. Let the car track out to the left. This is probably the most technical corner on the track other than the last one. But it's easy, and it's easy to get in here too deep, and it's kind of a committing corner. For most cars, you're going to be probably brushing the brake just before the crest of the hill right here. Kind of do your initial brake kind of pretty firm like you would anywhere else, but it's going to have to be very, very brief, because when you're climbing uphill, you're gaining that front grip. You can generate that brake pressure, but the second you go over the crest, where the Southern Miata is, you're going to lose a lot of that front grip. So if you're keeping all that weight on the nose, it's going to have the tendency of wanting to give you the sensation that the rear end wants to come around. So it's important, and the kind of the key thing we want to focus on in this corner is just keeping up our momentum, keeping up that rolling speed. So if you find yourself trying to charge in too deep on the brakes and you got all that weight on the nose, more than likely you're over slowing the car anyways, and you're also putting yourself at the risk of doing too much and swapping ends. So here, kind of the key thing to focus on, set yourself up to the left. Before we get to that crest, in a momentum car, it might be a tap of the brake. It might be able to even get away with a lift if you're on good tires. But just key thing to focus on is keeping that rolling speed up. It's going to be a late apex, so it's going to be a very, very slow turn in, and you're kind of just trying to keep that momentum going as much as possible. Let's go a little farther up. So here, for most cars, is where you're going to start braking, and you can see we have a very short period of time where we're still climbing up the hill before we crest. And when you crest, you don't want all that weight bound up on the nose. You already want to be releasing that brake pressure and settling that rear end down. Good, and this is a pretty good example of the line we want to take through here. A nice slow turn in. Remember, any abrupt inputs with the steering wheel are going to scrub speed. Since we don't want to scrub a whole lot of speed here, just do a nice slow turn in from the outside of the left. After you go over the crest, start that nice slow bend in, and that'll kind of put you right where you want to be. So you should see your left side tires just following a nice subtle line over here, and then apexing probably maybe a little tighter than where that Miata is, but close to that. And that's going to set you up for the next left-hander, which is also important because it leads on to a short little straightaway that we kind of want to keep that momentum going so we can be faster down that straightaway. A little deeper. Yeah. Right around here. We kind of get our eyes up. This is a good position for the car. Just keep it nice and smooth. Not a whole lot of braking in most cars going on after this point. You're just kind of rolling all that momentum through here. And you kind of just want to get your eyes set, looking down the road as far ahead as you can. This next corner is kind of a blind entry, but after a few laps, you'll kind of have the muscle memory and rhythm down to it. And it's a great flowing section of the track. It's actually pretty fun. I would say in most cars, I try to possibly avoid this curb here, but the next one, most cars are going to be fine putting left side tires on it to kind of help the car rotate through the center. And again, the main to treat these corners as they're kind of connected. They don't really lead onto a long straightaway. You just want to keep your momentum going. The next corner, you do want to focus on the exit. So right after apex, there's a bit of compression. By that point, you want to be able to smoothly roll back to the power. If you're unable to roll back to the power, probably rolling a little too much speed. Back it up here a little bit on entry. Set yourself up for a little better exit. Go a little deeper. Good. Outside tires right here. We want to be able to start smoothly adding power, and you should be able to do so in most cars. It's getting a nice clean drive off. Just make sure you got that car good and pointed, because as you go deeper and deeper to your track out, the road tends to drop away and you're going to lose a little bit of that grip. So if you're pushing, it's probably not going to get better. It's going to get worse. So make sure you got that car pointed there by apex, so that way you can commit back to that power nice and smoothly. Can't do it? Back it up a little bit on the entry to give yourself a better exit. That's where the time's going to come from. Good. Brush the brakes right around here in most cars. Kind of key notes here is just kind of, again, keeping that momentum going. You can trail brake almost all the way to apex in this corner if your car trail brakes nicely. As you come in right here where you were starting to bend it in, you have a very short period of time where you're straight line braking, and then right around here you're going to start your turn-in and start trailing off that brake, probably almost to where our friend up here is. And that's probably kind of where I would always think about trail braking too. Really using that brake to help you turn the car through the center. Try to keep your line pretty tight here. If you let it wash out, you're just going to have to do a big steering input to get it pointed in the other direction. So tighter line here. You can even use the curb on the left in most cars to help you turn the car through the center, and that's all perfectly fine. So the road drops away here a little bit, and that's why we don't want to let it shoot out too much, because we're losing front grip as the road drops away, and then we have to do an even tighter turn back, and we don't have as much grip to work with, try to change direction of the car. You just end up rolling all the speed. So if you can't hold a nice tight line and get a good clean entry, maybe think about backing up your braking point just a tad bit. Do focus on the exit here. You're climbing uphill, so you gain a bit of grip. Just make sure you got that car nice and pointed, because it is, again, easy to drop wheels here on the exit. Heading to the next section, it's a real quick set of S's. You want to be set up all the way to the right side of the track. In some cars, most cars, it's going to be a very, very, very light brake. The more, some cars might be able to get away with a lift. For most cars, I'd say it's going to be a very, very light brake. So it's a high speed section of the track, and it's just all about setting yourself up for a corner that's 2 corners away, which is the slowest corner on the second slowest corner on the track. And the exit is very, very important there. And it's difficult to get trapped on the brakes there because there's some bumps through the braking zone. But let's take a look at it. This is kind of a commitment section. You're going to feel a dip. For most cars, the more aero and grip you have working with you, the deeper and even lighter this brake is going to be. So for some cars, it's fine to maybe do that brake in a straight line, but then ease it off. That may be what's easiest. To go as fast as you possibly can, you're probably gonna be braking on pretty close to your entry. Once your hand starts turning, you can do a tap that brake and then immediately ease it back. Just more so setting the nose, really, than scrubbing any speed. Aim for this curb right here. It can help you really get that car set up for the next right-hander. So right here is kind of our focus point. That's where we want to get to. And then keep it to the left a little bit longer than you may want to. And that's going to set you up for the next right-hander, and more importantly, the next braking zone. If you find yourself tracking out too far to the right, or you're missing that curb, come up with a plan B there pretty quickly, because you've already messed up the next 2 corners, and just back it down and gather it up and try to get the next lap. Right, you want your left side tires to nip that curb and then keep it tight so you can straighten out your braking zone. That's kind of the key focus point here. If you don't get that right, then just regroup, try it again to hit your marks. Because then trying to go fast, then you're just potentially going to get yourself in trouble. So coming in, exactly right there. Keep it to the left so you can see the road is going to crest where our friend is, and that's entering the braking zone. So from here, now you have a good sight line. Kind of want to follow that curb all the way straight over to the top, and then come into your braking zone. Squeeze back to a little power, but then don't try to overdo it here on the brakes. It's really easy to do, but really just focus on the exit is what's most important here. And this also can be kind of bumpy. So here we are set up nicely for our braking zone. Once you pass that apex and curb on the right, go ahead and start braking. Park it so that we can turn it sharper As you get into the apex of the next right-hander up ahead, you're going to be gaining front grip because we're climbing uphill. And try to make sure by right around here, we're able to go back to a good amount of power and just get a good clean drive off. That's really the key thing. But this corner is super easy to just overdo it. Try to overcharge, and if you hurt the exit, you've just destroyed your whole lap. Come in, good. And here we are right back to the power, getting a good clean drive off, use all the road on the way out. It's all perfectly fine. Heading towards the last corner, probably the most frustrating one by far, because you never feel like you got it right or get everything out of it. But again, we're going to treat it kind of like the everyone's favorite corner on the track. Kind of a tight line is what works the best. There's really not a whole lot of time to be lost or gained through the center of this corner. You just want to maximize your braking point and getting back to the power on the exit, because that's a long straightaway and it leads on to a long straightaway. You'll even see, if you keep watching this video on the next lap, the Miata in front of us runs wide there, and it's hard for anybody to even get a run on him when he runs wide because he just rolls more speed through the center, hurts his exit a little bit, but not enough that sets up for an easy pass. I would recommend do your best to keep it tight, because then you're just taking a shorter distance around the corner, and just really focus on your braking, but take baby steps at it, because when you actually get to going as deep as you can go, it's going to feel like you're going to throw yourself off the road pretty much every lap. And you just want to try to get there as safely without throwing yourself off the road. So the way to do that is to take baby steps. Also trail brake about right where our friend is up there. Always have the mindset that you want to be able to trail brake about to that point where he's at. So starting our braking point right here, got a good straight line brake. Our other friend is right where our turn-in point is. We're going to trail that brake in, just easing back as we get deeper into the corner. And then once it takes a set, then we're just going to let it roll through the center and try to keep it tight. You can do a bit of maintenance throttle to keep up that momentum, but try not to overdo it. Try to do everything 1% at a time, and just really focus on the braking points on entry and getting back to a good good clean drive off the corner, maximizing the two straightaways, because the center of the corner, even though it's a long duration corner, is least important. So we're trailing that brake, coming in. Treat this like your true apex. Kind of crest here, you want to be nice and tight to that. It's okay if it starts tracking out here a little bit. So from here we should be just unwinding the wheel and adding power back in. And that is a lap of hell. We'll do a little quicker run through here on this next lap. And just remember, just hitting a couple key points. So turn one, it's going to be a compromise of both. Straight away here, we don't want to give up. Want to kind of maximize the rolling speed. A little trail brake on entry is perfectly fine. Try to get a good exit off turn one. Putting your left side tires on this curve is also good. Heading down to turn two, it's easy to get caught on the brakes here. So remember, park it and keep it tight. It's more important with higher horsepower cars, but even in momentum cars, just really kind of want to keep it tight, take a short way around the corner, get a good exit. Try not to sketch yourself out here too much. Give it a little brush to the brake, but key momentum, late apex. Tighten it up, get into the next left-hander early, and then focus here on the exit. Good brush of the brake, keep it tight. Trail that brake in, patience. Make sure when you go back to the throttle, you can keep adding throttle. Don't rush to it. Keep that momentum going for this next session. Good tap of the brake on entry in the higher horsepower cars. Keep it to the left until you can go straight over that crest. Don't go too deep here on the brakes. Focus on the exit. good and firm on the brakes, trail it in. Remember, right here at the crest is your true apex. Start smoothly adding power and unwinding that wheel. In higher horsepower cars, don't be afraid to unwind that wheel a little bit more there. And that's a lap of Hallett. Guys, I hope this was helpful. And if you have any questions, don't feel free to reach out. Thanks, guys. Bye.